So just a quick disclaimer, the U.S. government does not endorse products or manufacturers, and this is our standard disclaimer, but we will be talking about some vendor products today, but just so you know, it's not a preference or approval or endorsement of any one product or entity by the Federal Highway Administration. And we're presenting this information today because we think it'll be useful to public agencies and how some case studies in leading states are using crowdsourced data. So here's our agenda for today. These times are in East Coast time zone, Eastern time. So, but you can just look at the relative differences if you're in a different time zone. I'll give a quick update on the crowdsourcing initiative and some updates. And then we'll quickly get to our two featured presentations today. One is from Colorado DOT team that will be talking about their use of crowdsourced data for commercial vehicle operations. And then the other team will be from New Jersey and how they're using commercial vehicle crowdsourced data and for in-vehicle alerts. So we got two featured presentations today, and I hope you find them very useful. And then we'll round it out with the Q&A period at the end. So feel free to please put your questions in the chat pod as you think of them. I introduce myself. I'll be your host for today. Along with myself and the two featured presentations today, we have Craig Hurst from the Colorado DOT. Craig is the manager of the Freight Mobility and Safety Branch within the DOT. Co-presenting with Craig will be Jared Del Prado. Jared serves as the Vice President of Operations at Prepass Safety Alliance, and he is responsible for the oversight of the Alliance's service providers. Our second presentation today will be led by Sal Cowan from the New Jersey DOT. Sal is the Senior Director of Transportation Mobility within the New Jersey Department of Transportation, and he oversees Transportation Operations Systems and Support Unit. Co-presenting with Sal will be Amy Lopez of INRIX and Mark Nichols of IIS DriveWise. So why, let's skip a slide here. So what is Everyday Counts? Everyday Counts are also known as the EDC program. It's a program administered by the Federal Highway Administration, but in many ways it's really led by state and local agencies to help identify and rapidly deploy proven yet underutilized innovations for a number of goals. And those goals are to shorten project delivery, enhance roadway safety, reduce traffic congestion, and integrate automation. The EDC program runs in 2-year periods. We're in round 6 right now, or EDC 6, if you hear that term. That round started in the beginning of 2021 and ends at the end of 2022. Each round, there's about 7 to 10 innovations chosen, and the Crowdsourcing for Advancing Operations innovation was one of those chosen for EDC 6. We're actually a continuation. We were part of EDC 5 as well, and I would say of these 4 goals, the Crowdsourcing for Operations initiative really is focused on 2 of those goals, enhancing roadway safety and reducing traffic congestion. So just maybe a refresher why we're here, why you might be interested in crowdsourcing for operations. So there's a lot of different types of crowdsourced data out there and mature and available today. Anything from vehicle probe data to data that you can get directly from navigation apps like Waze or states 511 systems, local agency 311 apps are also a great way to get crowdsourced data directly from travelers. There's connected vehicle data that's available today. And social media data. So there's just a whole host of crowdsourcing and crowdsourced data that's available to agencies today. And those data, when applied in a way that is meeting an objective or a need of an agency, can help accomplish these 3 things. It can improve operations, increase safety and reliability, and it can save costs. And we've talked about many of these things in our past webinars, and I hope you see from today's webinar today that crowdsourced data can really help improve an agency's operations and increase safety while saving costs. So there's many different ways within the realm of transportation operations, or TISMO, that crowdsourced data can be used for, and these are some of the application areas. Freeway management, seen lots of applications of great traveler information, work zone management, incident management on freeways, work zone management, a lot of emerging uses of queue detection within work zones and alerts about work zone activities. Road or ITS maintenance, a number of agencies are using crowdsourced data to identify where potholes are and traffic signals down and other information for maintenance purposes that they can get to more quickly. Crowdsourced data can help with project prioritization by understanding the quantitative impacts of different corridors and how congestion is forming. You can get a lot of information from crowdsourced data on performance management that way. Emergency management, some really unique and neat applications of there about flood warning systems and things like that. And then there's a really emerging area safety. Safety application as well for setting speed limits or verifying speed conditions on roadways. Just giving you quick highlights there. On our website, we have a number of case studies that also talk about all these different application areas. Some updates coming up with the EDC6 program. Besides this webinar, we have 3 more coming up in roughly 1-month increments. The one in June is going to be on analytics tools for leveraging crowdsourced data. In July 20th, we'll be talking about work zone data, how that can be applied. And then in August, we'll focus on the topic of arterial operations and traffic signal management. So I hope you join those webinars as well. You can register at the NOCO's website, transportationops.com. Okay, so let me go ahead now and introduce our first team for presentation, and I will go ahead and hand it over to Craig and Jared from Colorado.
Hey James, thank you very much. Thanks Adam, and thanks to everybody out there for being with us today. This is a great venue that you guys have been doing. You know, obviously we are all passionate about highway safety and and the great gains that crowdsourcing has made over the years to contribute to that. I am Jared Del Prado from the Pre-Pass Safety Alliance, and so I'll be starting off with just a brief presentation of the safety alerts that we provide to our carriers today. And then again, I'll get into the wonderful relationship we've built with Colorado DOT and some of the things we've been partnering with Craig and his team on. So, but for starters, so if we go into some of the safety alerts that Pre-Pass offers today, first and foremost, we're a technology company, trucking technology company, and our mission literally is to make highways safer and more efficient through innovative, data-driven solutions. And one of those solutions is these crowdsourced powered safety alerts that we offer to our 700,000 plus truckers that we've got out there that run pre-pass today for pre-clearance and for tolling solutions and the like. And a quick distinction, these are what we are calling our dynamic safety alerts, and these are really the ones that are powered by all this great crowdsourcing data. We also have what we call static alerts, which are fixed geofences, through all the 48 states. I think there's something like 3,000 of those alerts, where we build, again, fixed geofences for other safety issues such as high winds, steep grades and things of that nature, but also, as we know, truck parking is huge, so we offer truck parking alerts there for available truck parking and rest areas and everything else that we can do what we can to help the truckers get the rest they need. We know that's been a big issue with all, ATRI reports basically seemingly forever. So, but back to the dynamic safety alerts that we're focusing on here. These are essentially real-time alerts that we give to the driver. It's both audio and visual, or depending on what is best for the driver and what is most effective to their style as they drive. And these dynamic alerts are the ones that we consider to be our critical safety alerts. Starting with work zones, we know how important work zone safety has been in these past years. And unfortunately, I think, all of us have seen, I think it came out May 17th, the latest NHTSA report for the 2021 safety numbers versus 2020. And unfortunately, fatalities rose to nearly 43,000, up over 10% year over year. And speeds have been up, right? So we know with COVID in 2020, the speeds went up tremendously as traffic was reduced, and then last year, according to this report, there were 325 billion more miles that have been run as commerce and everything started to come back last year, yet the speeds remained up, and speeds are definitely one of the issues within work zones. And commercial vehicles, 80,000-pound trucks obviously are going to have a higher propensity to crash into work zones if they are not aware that they're coming. I mean, just slowing down an 80,000-pound truck versus a passenger vehicle is just physics. And so the best that we can do to alert drivers about work zones is going to be huge for safety there. Very, very important to industry and our DOT partners. We also have traffic congestion ahead dynamic safety alerts. And I would say really the next one that is very effective, and it's been very, very critical as far as an upgrade to our alerts, is what we call dangerous slowdowns, but it's really the slow traffic ahead alert. As you can see there, it's giving the warning, warning, slow traffic is ahead. And this is really where the crowdsourcing data is a strength. I'll talk a little bit more about INRIX, and I know INRIX obviously is going to be presenting here in a bit, but we are fortunate to have our data to be powered by INRIX. And these dangerous slowdown alerts, again, I'm sure they're going to explain it a lot better than I can, but essentially we're looking at massive, data points across the country, and you've got different traffic sectors that they observe. And when there's a significant change in speed, a slower change in speed from sector to sector, the driver is going to get this, hey, be aware, slow down, that there is something going on ahead. And in particular, we feel like these are so effective in the not expected traffic congestion areas, right? When it's not rush hour or it's not a city center. And Pre-Pass Safety Alliance, we're headquartered here in Phoenix, Arizona, and we had a terrible crash about a year ago or so on the Loop 202. And it was at night, it was at midnight or something, and it was around a very, very slight bend. And unfortunately, the truck driver, for whatever reason, was, distracted, exhausted, what have you, and not paying attention as they should have been. And as they rounded the corner and they were traveling 60 miles an hour, they didn't touch the brakes on the truck until they were only 3 meters away from the car in front of them. And unfortunately, the driver lost their life, and there were several fatalities. But this is just an example of where, hey, I'm driving at night. Maybe you don't expect there's going to be congestion, but that's where alerts like these can be so powerful, as you get that audio and visual to say, hey, there's something going on ahead, and then you cover the brake and you start to slow down. And, the more of these alerts we can get in front of the more drivers, then obviously safety is going to just continue to improve. So, and then next, those wonderful alerts are powered by this great data that we get from INRIX. And just a quick story for me on where I think, crowdsourcing has come. I was working and living in Indianapolis, Indiana back in 2009, and I believe that's right when the Waze app came out. And so our main office was in Indianapolis, and we had another office that was in the Muncie area, which was about 40 to 50 miles up the 69 freeway. And one of my colleagues, told me about Waze, and they were running Waze. And so we literally formed this small social network with our employees and our colleagues that had to drive up and down this freeway. And there were, at the time, it was just mostly for roadkill, unfortunately. Just deer were constantly crossing that road and getting hit by cars. And within this small social network, it was just a great way to just keep track of that. So we knew when there were incidents or accidents or anything coming up. And obviously, Waze was a game changer and has just turned things around so much. And now we've got, this incredible crowdsourced data, right? Where, again, INRIX has these hundreds of sources, from traffic management centers to monitoring state DOT Twitter feeds and, connected vehicles, GPS data and mobile data and fleet data, all these very, very powerful sources of data that now feed up into this super accurate, critical information that we all can pass on, obviously for commercial vehicles, but of course for passenger vehicles and the like and everything else. And so again, from those early beginnings to now, what I'm assuming, and I think we all are hoping that the next steps of this crowdsourcing data is going to lead to CV to X and connected vehicles, and then link to the, automated vehicle future where, all these data feeds are going to basically, come together and be a huge, huge contributor to letting all of us know about incidents out there on the road, and all of us driving towards eventually getting to zero fatalities, because it's absolutely unacceptable that we're going in the wrong direction right now as a nation, and we can do better, and these are one of the great ways to do that. So again, that's just, from our perspective, a quick update on where crowdsourcing has come and how valuable it is. And we obviously partner with many state DOTs, and one of those is Colorado DOT, and Craig Hurst has been leading the team over there with innovations on their part as well, in what they're doing, utilizing crowdsourcing data and helping improve safety. They're working on a really cool project on the I-70 Mountain Corridor. So, with that, Craig, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for that great introduction. I think to build off what Jared was talking about, I think there's a lot of great opportunity, and really want to talk about kind of where we've started and where we're going. So Colorado is unique in a sense of the amount of mountain driving on our interstate that we have. And the I-70 Mountain Corridor has its own set of challenges that there really is no silver bullet on how to solve this. But one of the ways that we have set out to solve the runaway trucks, or the hot brake issue, if you will, that we see most frequently in the summer, but year-round now, due to the steep grades. And so we have a system, our network of runaway truck ramps based off of the grade, all over 6%. And the data that we have from the incidents in the runaway truck ramps is that 90% of those incidents happen from out-of-state drivers with very little mountain driving experience. And so one of our challenges is, how do you communicate to those drivers? We have good education programs within our state, and a lot of companies participate in those, but how do you get that beyond our borders? And so one of the ways that we thought about doing this is, back in 2019, was start to look at safety data and establish this relationship with PrePass as well as DriveWise at the time, to do the static messaging on the I-70 Mountain Corridor based off of historical safety data where we have commercial motor vehicle crashes, including the runaway truck ramps. And so we began to build geofence locations where we thought we would supplement the roadside signage. And part of that discussion is between Rifle, Colorado, and Golden, Colorado, which basically encapsulates the whole mountain corridor. We have over 110,000 road signs. And so part of the issue that we get feedback from some of the drivers on the roadway is that, sometimes it's just too much signage, and that direct, real time, like at the right time for a behavioral change in the way that you're driving, these in-cab messages can be extremely effective. And so in 2019, we started this pilot program on the I-70 Mountain Corridor. It's been very flexible. I would say the thing that's most exciting to me is its flexibility. And, if you set a geofence a half mile away, and you're getting feedback from drivers in real time that it's either coming too early or it's a little too late, you can adjust that geofence and really start to fine-tune how you're getting the messaging out. And then also, during this pilot, there's been flexibility in where you set up those messages. So maybe everybody has heard that the Glenwood Canyon fire in 2020 caused some significant damage in our canyon, and then the following year, we had a pretty significant rock slide that shut down I-70. Well, we were able to set geofences in Nebraska and Utah, letting truck drivers know that the I-70 Mountain Corridor was closed, and if they can make that decision to use I-70 based off where they were going, while they were still in another state. So they're, you know, they could continue on I-80 or they can continue going north or south on 15 to the, while they're in Utah to decide if they want to go north to 80 or south to 40 if they were going east to west. And so that amount of flexibility started to teach us kind of where we want to go to for real-time notification as we are starting to work towards these programs where we're doing the things that Jared was describing in his piece of the presentation. So our first real-time project that we're trying to work on is a speed warning system for these steep grades. And one of the things that we have received from the data that we have on these runaway truck incidents is that there really is a point of no return where you can come into some of these steep grade areas where if you hadn't already started slowing down, you're likely going to have to use your brakes in a way that it starts the friction heating of your braking system way too early on the mountain pass, and you're going to burn them up by the bottom of the pass. If you're not using your engine or your Jake brake appropriately, you're pretty much going to be in a bad situation. So we've taken a University of Wyoming algorithm that takes the weight of your load, which we are getting from a weigh in motion several miles back on the main line at our port of entry. And we will be sending each specific truck a safe weight for their grade based off of, you know, if you're a 125,000 pound permitted load going down this 9-mile grade, you see her there between the Eisenhower Johnson Memorial Tunnel and Silverthorne, you should probably be going a little bit slower than the 40,000 pound floor loaded grocery load going to our Safeway or King Super grocery stores in the mountain. So we've taken that approach and we're trying to solve kind of that real-time communications problem. I wouldn't necessarily call it a problem, but maybe an opportunity. And we found success in how we're going to deliver this, and this project will be up and running in 2022. And so we hope to start to learn the impact of these real-time messages here. And then as Jared called out, we feel that there is an incredible amount of opportunity in looking at other safety areas, you know, in the trucking industry on how we can use these real-time safety messages to improve some of our traditionally tough safety issues to solve. Just to finish up with a couple examples, I think at-grade crossings and some of the accidents that we've seen between rail and truck freight can be at least communicated in a far better way to truck drivers, allow them to make the decision to kind of be more cautious or stay away from that at-grade crossing at the time. And, you know, really foundationally what goes back, where I go back to where we started on all of this, I worked in the trucking industry for about 8 years before coming to the DOT, and I truly believe that if you give a professional truck driver the right information at the right time, they'll make the right decision, and that will help improve safety on the entire network that the truck drivers are utilizing around the nation. And so for me, I think that the real-time messaging will be that connection towards the future of trucking, and I think you know, bringing that right information to the human and keeping that factor into it will really improve safety on our roadways.
Hey, Craig, this is Jared, by the way, and I was just at, you know, I think a lot of us were just at the American Trucking Association convention here that was out here in Scottsdale, and, you know, there was representation there from Colorado Motor Carriers Association, and, you know, they were basically asking for help in a very similar, you know, topic where there was some data provided, and I know, and I'd ask you to maybe provide some insight on this as well, some data provided about the frequency of these accidents that are occurring, or even the truckers that are blowing their brakes out are often from out of state or maybe have not, you know, traveled this corridor before. Can you provide any insight on that, and if there's any solutions, you know, in a venue like this, right, with all these state DOTs on the line to help get the word out for anybody new traveling that corridor?
Yeah, I think so. We do kind of follow-up interviews with every incident that our state patrol responds to or our our road maintenance crews respond to. And really, so I guess I'm asterisking that is we might not be able to, we might not get the data for every single incident because not every incident leads to a law enforcement contact or it could be less significant, and so we're not necessarily seeing it. But from the data we do have, it shows those that end up in a runaway truck ramp are between 88 and 92% from another state, and they have less than 5 years driving experience and little to zero mountain driving experience. And, you know, I am working with other state DOTs just at a very preliminary level. The Colorado Department of Transportation, my team specifically, put out something called the Mountain Rules Truck Safety video, and that is in support. Kind of everything that we're doing here kind of falls under the Mountain Rules safety umbrella. But we did an opening video to our series that calls out some of these specific challenges, and we're continuing that video series by making 3 more short YouTube videos. And this next video that's coming out around the July 1st timeframe is about hot breaks and mountain driving. And really, if I were to make a plea similar to what the Colorado Motor Carriers were doing, is can't help us get that information out to drivers that are coming really anywhere in the Mountain West. Colorado might have these problems accentuated because of the amount of mountains that we have, but these are the same problems that you see in Utah, in Idaho, in Nevada, in California, in Wyoming. So really what we hope is that the message that we're putting out, it's not exclusive to the West, but it's more prominent in the West, and we can really, you know, help some of these drivers that are not from a mountainous region understand the challenges of driving on steep grades. And so my first attempt is going to be working with Sherry Pfeiffer, who's the freight planning manager in Texas. Her and I are on the Washoe Freight Planning Committee together, and I'm going to be working through her to try to get with some of the Texas organizations, because we've seen a spike in incidents that have happened from drivers from Texas, and so that's just our first attempt, and we'd be willing to work with, you know, states from all over the country on getting this safety message out.
Awesome. That is just really, really cool to hear about that type of collaboration and everything out there, right, to keep us all safe through your beautiful Rockies. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that, because we all go back to the incident that occurred in 2019 that kind of unfortunately made Colorado famous for there for a little bit in the news about the incident that killed 4 people with a runaway truck ramp in the Lakewood area in Colorado. So really, you know, we were working on this before that incident, but that incident has obviously highlighted the needs and the challenges that are there on the corridor. Thank you.
Well, that was very interesting. Thank you, Craig and Jared, for the great presentation, and definitely a different perspective on use of crowdsourced data. A lot of our focus has been with the EDC initiative in urban and urban areas. So this is a great example of how crowdsourced data can be used in a rural area that definitely has safety issues. So thank you guys very much for the presentation. I know as one that just took a road trip with my family to the Redwoods in California with very curvy and a couple mountain passes, it is very difficult driving conditions, so I can't imagine maneuvering a truck through some of those grades and horizontal curves. So any more real-time information and warnings and alerts we can give them, the better. So everyone, please, if you think of a question for Craig or Jared, please type it in the chat pod, and we'll answer it in the Q&A later on. And we will now transition to the New Jersey presentation. Sal Cowan, Amy Lopez, and Mark Nichols. I'll hand it over to you, Sal, to take it away.
Thank you, James. Can you hear me?
Yep.
And the microphone worked. Accomplished another feat of technology. It's great. So James, thank you and the folks at FHWA for allowing us the time to be able to talk about the efforts that we've been putting forth here in New Jersey. Also a big thank you to Adam and the team at NOCO. Always great to share the experiences that we're having amongst our partners and our friends in the industry. Looking through the list of attendees, I see a lot of people who we've interacted with, and it's great to see everybody. We've been working with our partners at INRIX and DriveWise on this platform, and we're very pleased. I was on an AASHTO CTSO working group discussion the other day, and the sobering statistics that were released earlier this week from NHTSA about the 2021 traffic fatalities. 42,915 is an incredibly sobering number. One is too many, I think we can all agree, but the number's going up 10.5% from 2021, and within that, a 13% increase involving large trucks. So these are the kinds of things that we think about, and these are the kinds of day-to-day activities that we should be talking about. How can we make improvements? The folks in Colorado, it sounds like a very interesting program, and the more information we can get into the hands of these drivers to be able to make more informed decisions in advance of a problem, that's the key. The 3 meters away from a crash, what can you do? You're there. You're already in that. You're already a part of a problem. But the further away that we can provide these notifications to stop traffic, to incidents on the roadway, to changing conditions, the better. What the team and I, Amy Lopez from INRIX, Mark Nichols from DriveWise, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about the program that we've put together over the course of the last year to really try to help improve road safety by communicating with truck drivers in real time. Our partners, DriveWise is a new partner of ours. We've been working with them in advance of the launch and leading up to it and through it, and we have regular conversations with them and their technical team. And we have been a partner of INRIX for some time. We are a member of the Eastern Transportation Coalition and the Data Marketplace, and both INRIX and DriveWise have been very valuable to communicating about these types of programs and helping us to learn exactly what we can do to be able to provide the real-time information to the industry where, whatever it takes. I made a joke the other day, and, I sometimes ramble off topic, so I apologize, but those of you that know me know, sometimes I loop around to a point. I'm a big Marvel fan. I'm a big comic book fan. And so I watched the Marvel movies, and I saw Avengers Endgame. And, it's on repeat in my house because that's just the kind of person I am. But when Captain America and Tony Stark were standing there and they were going to go back in time, and they said, we're going to go back, whatever it takes. And that's what I tell my staff. And that's what I tell people here at New Jersey DOT. We are going to do whatever it takes to save any person on our roads, whether it's getting them off the highway by changing their tire, or removing a piece of debris, or clearing a crash sooner so that there's no backup and we can avoid secondary crashes, sending information out via services like this or traditional ITS. Whatever it takes, that's what we're going to do, because we really want to make a dent. We really want to watch those numbers that were released earlier this week, turn the opposite way and reduce those fatality numbers. That's what we can do in these kinds of products. I'm going to pass this along to Amy Lopez, our partner from INRIX, to provide a little bit more of information about the data that INRIX provides. Amy? Amy?
Collaborative solution, DriveWise. Can you hear me?
I can now. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Okay, so INRIX, we've been working with New Jersey DOT for I think it's almost 10 years now. New Jersey was one of the first states to use our data, our real-time data statewide, and we've had a long relationship with DriveWise as well, and a partnership to collaborate with the goal of saving lives on the highways across the country. So our role in the partnership and working with DriveWise and in providing services to New Jersey is that we provide real-time data in New Jersey, and our real-time data detects and warns drivers of changes ahead. This includes congestion, queues that are forming, or dangerous slowdowns and road closures. We don't typically refer to, with the DriveWise solution, our internal name is dangerous slowdowns, but with the DriveWise solution, we're very careful about using the word dangerous. We frame it as a sudden slowdown, so that, and Mark can talk more about this as it's coming into the ELD in the truck. We want to make sure that we are providing terminology that that garners the appropriate reaction. So again, we're providing our real-time APIs to DriveWise, and they're then using that in a geofence area that Mark will get into in more detail in a second. So next slide, Sal. Okay, so essentially there are two types of alerts that we refer to internally as incidents that are curated and incidents that are calculated. The curated incidents are from multiple sources such as DOTs, Twitter feed, Waze, police scanners, and other sources that are managed by our incident team that works 24/7, 365 days a year. The calculated incidents, such as dangerous slowdowns or sudden slowdowns, are a type of incident that is mathematically calculated by INRIX and compares our real-time speed with free flow speed in order to allow for an understanding of abnormal conditions. So for example, with a dangerous slowdown, when we calculate the speed from one segment to the next upstream, we determine if there's a greater than 25 mile per hour change in speed or delta in speed, suggesting a sudden slowdown ahead where drivers need to take actions to avoid rear-end collision. So again, each incident includes segment location, a roadway description, a journalistic description, start and end points, detour points, and average speeds along that congested segment with a congestion alert. So again, all of this is provided to DriveWise so that they can take this information, create an alert that goes into the ELD to warn truck drivers of sudden changes ahead. Next slide, and as we switch to the next slide, I'll turn this over to my colleague from DriveWise, Mark Nichols.
Thank you, Amy. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone today. And just a little bit of background about DriveWise. We're North America's largest connected truck network with a reach of about 2.8 million trucks. And now, not all those 2.8 million trucks are paying customers, but they can download the DriveWise app to a compatible GPS device and receive the alerts. This is done through the DriveWise app and resides in the electronic logging device inside the truck. And for those of you that are not familiar with the ELD, as it's referred to, it's basically the nucleus in the communication center for that driver. Everything they have on there, their hours of service, origin, destination, manifest, navigation, pre-clearance. And the reason ours is embedded in the ELD is because ours stays on all the time in the truck. And that's very important to know. It's just not an app sitting there going on and off. It's actually running from the time they cut it on. It's sitting there in that electronic logging device in idle mode, basically. So it'll let the driver know of anything that they're doing. All the driver's information is kept there, and we actually even have a patent device on
Mark, you
our
cut
coach.
out.
Can you still hear me? Hello?
I can hear you again now, yes.
Okay. We actually have a device that will allow the driver and to be basically coached by their safety director, and they can actually see the results of some of the geofences that we set for the driver. So that's a little bit about it in the background, and you can understand the importance to the electronic logging device. Again, we had that reach 2.8 million trucks out there on the roads that have the access to download this app, and we're able to provide all kind of information, like you see above: congestion ahead, proceed with caution, sudden slowdowns. This is important because we all know when you're driving a commercial motor vehicle, it's a lot different than what you see every day. So with that, Amy, I think we'll go to the next slide, and I think it goes back to you.
Okay, so the process for working with DriveWise and INRIX is that we provide our real-time data, our real-time APIs to DriveWise. They geolocate that active event based on the information in that API, and they send a single notification to drivers as they approach the event in the direction of travel. The beauty of this is that Sal and his team can also generate messages that are short and specific to weather-related restrictions, weight-related detours, or other events that may be happening. Sal is going to, in a minute, we're going to go through a use case that happened related to a winter storm this year. But we've also there's also other types of emergencies that this can be used for, such as bridge outages or other types of incidents that were unable to be predicted ahead of time, other than work zones and such. So again, this provides the alert into the ELD, and then another part of the feature of the service is that Sal and his team can log onto the DriveWise business intelligence platform and know exactly how many alerts were sent out, how many vehicles were alerted, and see a record of all the messages on a monthly basis, daily basis, and based on corridors. Next slide. Sal, I don't know if you want to cover this as your truck alert dashboard.
Absolutely. So, like Amy was talking about, when we were talking about the setup for the program, we said, look, this is our first foray into this specific type of platform, and DriveWise to the department was a new product service that we wanted to see. So what we wanted was, I'll put it bluntly, we wanted proof. We wanted to see how it was working. We wanted to see where it was working, which roadways that we had selected were getting the most number of alerts. What were they? What kind of alerts were they? Were they the slowdown alerts? So what we do is we work through Tableau, pretty easy to use, and so we put together and worked with DriveWise for this traffic alert dashboard, which gives us a very filterable type of platform. We can see where these alerts are taking place. We can see which corridors, times of day, months, which ones are really kind of hitting the notes. It's no shock that the New Jersey Turnpike, who is one of our partners in this, I'll be remiss if I didn't mention the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, the South Jersey Transportation Authority, and the New Jersey Department of Transportation were put together in terms of our roadway coverage. So it covers New Jersey DOT's interstates, but we're kind of a small state. So my Interstate 76 eventually connects to a freeway section of New Jersey 42, which eventually connects to the Atlantic City Expressway. So our roadways are very interconnected. You can drive across our state or up and down through our state in less than 3 hours. So we wanted to see the product. We wanted to see what was being sent out. And this really did help us get a better understanding of that. We started getting more of the details, the Latin long. Where were they? How long were the alerts? How long did they go off for? Was it congestion, the kind of recurring congestion you might see? Or was it one of those sudden slowdowns like Amy was mentioning, that delta that, all of a sudden, something unusual has happened, and it is such a wide delta that the system is recognizing this as whoa, we better tell people about it. And so with the INRIX data as the basis and the notification system through DriveWise, we've been very pleased with it. So we were talking about, which agencies are a part of it. We all operate underneath the Commissioner for DOT, Diane Gutierrez-Gichetti. She is the Commissioner for DOT, but she is also on the chair. She is also the chairperson for the New Jersey Turnpike Authority as well as the South Jersey Transportation Authority. So we put together a listing among all three agencies for about 647 miles. We wanted to cover the New Jersey Turnpike Authority end to end. They have various pieces of roadways, some that connect to Pennsylvania, some that connect in towards tunnels and tolls and bridges. New Jersey, our interstate system is kind of simple, a couple of roadways back and forth straight across the state, up and down. And so we also partnered with our friends down in South Jersey for the Atlantic City Expressway and their connections down in Brigantine closer to Atlantic City. But this was the real interesting piece, right? So we're in the Northeast. We get a lot of snow. Probably not as much as our friends that are further north and further east of us. God bless you people in Portland. I don't think I could live there. But, there are times when we can get 5 to 8 to 12 to 16 to 20 inches of snow. The Winter Storm Keenan was expected to be a very dangerous snowstorm. And as you can see, for those of you familiar with the Northeast, that storm pretty much travels along the route of 95. And so what we were looking at was a significant impact to regional travel, not just New Jersey. New Jersey, like I said, you can crisscross us in 2 hours, 3 hours. But just because you can get through our state in 2 hours, it doesn't mean that we can't be considering the travel of the people who are heading north of us into New York, into Connecticut, into Massachusetts and Maine, or south of us or west of us in Pennsylvania and Delaware and Maryland and Virginia, because we're all sharing the same customer base. That engine that is I-95 that supports not only commerce but commuting is incredibly important. So what we did was we wound up having a conversation. And Amy, do you want to tell them about the conversation we had as I was driving into the statewide traffic management center that night?
Yeah. So Sal called me around 3 o'clock on a Friday and said, hey, and I live in upstate New York, so I was well aware of the weather forecast. And he asked me, hey, have you heard about the storm that's supposed to hit? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, well, I want to quickly ask you, can we send out weather alerts via DriveWise? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. He goes, okay, here's the real question. I know that not every state in the Northeast is a subscriber to DriveWise. Can you guys send out alerts to everybody anyway, even if they're not paying for it? So I said, well, let me call Mark, and Mark and I will chat real quick, but I'm pretty confident he's going to say yes, because Mark is a former state trooper, and Mark is all about saving lives, and he's all about, improving safety. So I hung up with Sal, called Mark, and got right back to Sal and said, we're in. Let's do this. So we coordinated with Denise Markow, who is the TSMO lead at the Eastern Transportation Coalition. She contacted all of the state DOTs in the Northeast that were going to be impacted by the storm. We let them know that we're going to send out a simple message to all northbound traveling trucks at the ports of entry as they enter into each state to let them know to check 511 and make sure and be aware of road closures. So within about an hour and a half, 2 hours of sales requests, Mark rallied his team, and we were able to alert every state in the Northeast. If we go to the next slide, we have a quick map. So this shows you over that 30-hour period that alert was active for that whole winter storm. We notified 11 states. 10 of them are not current subscribers to the DriveWise alert. And this prevented about 4,800 trucks from being on the road during that time frame. And just in New York State alone, there were 339 alerts, but you can see in Pennsylvania there were about 900, and there were some significant folks still on the road, even though this winter storm was bearing down. So Mark, I don't know if you have any other color to add to the story.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Amy. When I talked with Sal, when we talked with Amy, we knew we had a significant storm coming. What can we do immediately to affect these highway systems to keep the trucks off the roads? Because we all know 80,000 pounds, 70 feet long from bow to stern, you get out there at a 55 mile an hour on any good driving condition, it's going to take the length of a football field to stop that truck. You know, increase it with the weather conditions such as ice and snow. Now you're looking at situations that jeopardize the whole highway system. Trucks seem to jackknife into snow and ice. They just don't have the traction, and the tractor spins around on the trailer, and that causes even more blockage on our highways. So what do we do about it? How can we do that? The best thing to do is keep the trucks off the road or let them park in a safe haven. So what we were able to do, just like Amy said, we were able to create a simple message to the drivers through the ELD, again, important message to the ELD that they're going to look at, saying major winter storm, call 511 for closures. We tried to keep it simple. We unified that message across all these states, and even the states coming from Pennsylvania east, we knew they were going to be facing that storm. So we were able to put messages up in good locations at these state state borders and interstate interchanges. And like Amy said, what was amazing to us, 4,800 trucks still got that message. And that many trucks were still on the highway traveling during this storm, which was pretty alarming to us because most drivers will take safe haven when they hear of a snowstorm or ice storm ahead. But we were able to reach that many drivers, and we feel like we had an impact on them. And even if they called, even if one truck called, it could have prevented a collision with either a fatality or injury, or, you know, creating a bottleneck on the highway system. And that prevents, most of the times it'll prevent EMS, fire trucks from being able to get to injured, which is a life-saving event right there. So we felt very confident that what we did was good. And I think this, you know, the slide that demonstrates very simply what we can do in a very simple and fast mode. We created this. We were able to get it up and running, as Amy said, and we were able to get messages to trucks. We did a similar thing down when the bridge went out at the Tennessee-Arkansas bridge, as you're familiar with. That bridge went out due to cracks in the infrastructure, and we were able to notify thousands of drivers in advance at state lines about the bridge closures. And the DOT in Tennessee and Arkansas was very thankful, along with the trucking associations, that were able to prevent more trucks from clogging up the arteries there around the bridges and prevent the DOT from being able to do their jobs. And again, it just doesn't stop there. If you think about it, whatever happens in that situation, you're preventing EMS and first responders to be able to respond to individuals that are calling for help. So this goes back to a major incident clearance for us, that we can provide information in real time to drivers through that ELD, which is important. We had the same situation with Louisiana and Texas at a bridge down there. We were able to give those information out. But it's very critical to us to be able to get to the driver, provide them with potential information that will keep the roads clear and hopefully keep the driver from being involved in a collision, and be able to keep passenger vehicles around them clear.
Yes.
Back to you, Sal.
Mark, thank you. It's been a great project. Just to wrap everything up, the collaboration was great. The real-time, oh crap, can we do this? And the flexibility of our partners to be able to do it. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Sue Catlett, our project manager from New Jersey DOT, and Ridwan Ahmed, our senior engineer here at the department, who have worked through a lot of the finer details, as well as our partners at the Turnpike, both Turnpike and SJTA, FHWA, who has supported us throughout our crowdsourced efforts, as well as in each one of the EDC rounds. And with that, I believe I'm going to turn that back over to James at FHWA.
Great. Thank you, Sal and Amy and Mark. Great presentation. Very interesting, and a great example of a public-private partnership. So I'm sure we could talk for a lot longer about each of these case studies and examples and lessons learned. But let's go ahead and transition now to some Q&A. And I saw Sal. I guess we've got a new nickname for you in the chat, Superhero Sal. That's maybe.
Okay, so here's the deal. I know Russ Holt. Like I said, there are people familiar in the attendee list. Whatever it takes, Russ. That's exactly what we're talking about. I think, you know, it's a common mantra. But yeah, I mean, that's what we should be thinking about. We should be thinking about how we can help stem the tide of those human errors, and alerting, getting into the human part of it and letting them know, hey, you've got a problem, whether it's an ITS solution, a connected vehicle solution, or these types of alerts are a step towards that. One life is too many, and if we can make a difference, we should.
Great, well said. Thank you, Sal. Yeah, go ahead if you have any questions, put them in the chat pod, and we'll get to those. I see one from Nick Johnson. We can go ahead and get to this one here. So the question is, can queues or slowdowns be identified?
I can field that question.
Okay, is that
So,
you, Amy?
so
Yeah,
as
you
far
want
as ramps, sure, I'm so sorry. So as far as ramps, yes, we can detect lane level and ramps for the slowdown. It's a segment by segment. We use a very small segmentation called XD, and no segment is any longer than a mile long, and it's typically shorter than that. So the dangerous slowdown API does find slowdowns between segment to segments.
Great. Yeah.
And this is Jared, by the way. I see there's also a question. I see there's a question in here for pre-pass, which is what sources of data does pre-pass access for incidents? And so we started off with incident data at pre-pass back in early 2019. We started working with the state of Kentucky and Kentucky DOT, and we built an API and did an integration for them or with them for incidents. For work zones, so it was traffic congestion, and incidents and events and anything basically that's going on in Kentucky to be able to provide that, to the carriers. And, we learned obviously a lot in that scenario of building, these individual APIs with state DOTs, and it wasn't long thereafter that we actually started to learn about the wonderful folks over at INRIX and, their unbelievably comprehensive data set that they've also got, which is over the states. And so, that's where we basically started talking with INRIX. And so we also utilize the INRIX data, for our incidents now. That, Amy did a wonderful job presenting earlier, with the 24/7 traffic management sources and everything else. And also one quick clarification, and thank you, Amy, for pointing this out earlier. We also only use the term dangerous slowdowns internally. Our actual alert that we give to our truckers just says slow traffic ahead. So, but yeah, thanks for the clarification on that one. But anyhow, that's those are the main types of data sources that we utilize, or state DOTs, and again from our friends over at INRIX.
Great. Thanks for stepping in, Jared, and thanks for answering that question, Amy. Go ahead, if you have questions, type them in. I do have a couple back pocket questions here that I can get to, but I'll put priority on any that come into the chat bot. I don't see any others in right now, Adam, but feel free to correct me if I'm missing one. I see one just popped in from Russell Holt. Russ, thanks for participating today and giving Sal a new nickname. So here's a question for Craig. Did your agreement or contract with the vendor lay out how changes to geofencing must or should be made, or was it all worked out on the fly? You want to take that, Craig or Jared?
Yeah, I could take that. I'll tell you, when this all happened, it was all worked out on the fly. I think now now that it's kind of a proof of concept, pilot's done, everything will probably be far more outlined on how we do this and kind of what the next steps need to be. But honestly, I think it was like in almost like product development stage where we were just seeing how it can be used and asking new questions and kind of solving it on the fly. I wasn't solving anything, to be honest. I was the one asking questions. But it was very kind of worked out on the fly, kind of just agreements to see if we recognize an issue. Let's see if we can solve for this. And now I think it's being far more formalized.
Okay. Anything to add, Jared?
Nope, I think Craig summed it up perfectly.
Okay, great. Sometimes that happens with new technologies and deploying them in a pilot status. So, okay. Thank you, Matthew, for the question. So this one just popped up. Looks like it's for Colorado, so let me go ahead and read it. What was the legislative process for establishing variable speeds in Colorado? Or was that already in place prior to this pilot project? And are you pre-establishing variable speeds for given conditions or just case by case?
Yeah, that's a very interesting part about the project that we're trying to work through right now. So the I-70 Mountain Corridor is part of our VSL program, so it will have a variable speed limit for all traffic, and it's kind of phasing through that right now. There's sections that are built out west, and it's continuing to move east now. And so we do already have variable speed limit legislation within Colorado. The truck safety information system that will be feeding into the cab of trucks is also integrated with our variable speed limit system, and so obviously the kind of system-wide variable speed limit takes precedence over anything that we are going to be sending. So obviously if we're giving a safe speed limit of 35, but conditions at the Eisenhower Johnson Memorial Tunnel suggest that maybe 25 is the safe speed limit because of a heavy snowstorm, then that 25 would be the message that the truck driver got. It would just be everybody's at 25. So in a normal operation, that's where some of these challenges that we're still kind of working out through, not just debate, but trying to do simulations of, so you have a truck that's going, like I suggested in my presentation, floor loaded, it's 40,000 pounds. Based off of the algorithm, it can do 35 miles an hour, which is 20 below the passenger vehicle speed limit. But in right behind them, there's somebody doing, or right in front of them, there's someone doing 25 because they have a 100,000 pound load, and the algorithm suggests that they need to go slower. That's what we're working through right now. Any change more than 20 miles per hour between the speed limits is kind of our current method or our current practice. And we're trying to understand if, there's some folks that want all trucks in the right lane on this 3-lane road, and their suggestion that, you have to be able to utilize 2 in a VSL situation. And so we will work through those problems. I'm not a traffic engineer or a simulation expert, and so I listen to them, and they kind of tell me we'll redefine our parameters, and then we solve from there. And so that is the fun part about this stuff in my book is, you can really dive into those challenges and understand kind of how it's going to impact the day-to-day operations, with the obvious goal of not creating new challenges by trying to solve for the ones that are in front of us.
Yeah, and also I'd like to jump in and comment, Matthew, on your question. Again, great question, and specifically about the legislative process. And just to point out, so the Pre-Pass Safety Alliance, we're partnering with Colorado as well on these variable, speed alerts and this great truck safety program that Craig and his team are working on, so that we can also get these alerts, into the cab of the pre-pass customers. But I just want to point out, it is a safety-based alert, just like all the other alerts we've been talking about today. And it won't be, for example, an enforced speed limit, right? It's not like the actual speed limits themselves are changing. It's just to Craig's point that, if you're a heavy truck and these are the conditions, that absolutely you're getting the safety suggestion. Again, is just hopefully to get the driver just to be hyper aware. Yep, I've got some steep grades coming, and I'm going to be preventative. I'm going to slow down now. So that, Craig's actually taught me a lot about this, you know what I mean? But just, back when truckers had manual transmissions for the most part, right? There was always the rule, you come up the mountain and you go down the mountain in the same gear. Well, a lot of these automatic trucks and everything out there that are now, it's just easy to start rolling down the other side of the mountain and not, taking it, as seriously sometimes, as they should. And as Craig mentioned earlier, out-of-state carriers or whatever the case may be. So either way, I just wanted to clarify that this isn't a law. This is just going to be, suggested safety alerts, just like all these other alerts that we're collectively working on in this industry.
Okay, great answer. Thanks for clarifying. These are advisory speeds here. So yes, it does bring up some interesting questions about individual trucks getting different advisory speeds on the same section. So maybe we'll have to have you back for an update, Craig, on how your work continues with that challenge.
Hey, James, this is Mark Nichols.
Here's a question.
Hey, it's Mark Nichols.
Okay.
Yeah, to kind of add to what we just heard is what we're doing is we're taking it one step further, and actually we're working with carriers to identify the drivers and begin a coaching system. So when the driver gets an alert, the actual safety directors can check their drivers to ensure that they're complying with the message that they're getting across from an electronic logging device. And if they feel like the message did not sink in, then they may ask the driver, did you alert, why didn't you respond to this? So there's actually beginning a coaching system. So we're not letting messages come across that the driver gets that someone is not doing checks and balances within their carrier system. We have a program that we call Safety Plus that does this, and we're able to kind of let the drivers work with themselves and the coaching mentor on the other end, maybe safety director, could be just a mentor within the company to work on that driver and to make sure that they're doing the things that they need to do to keep other drivers safe, motorists, and themselves and their freight safe. So that's kind of been really, really unique for us to see that happening. And then the other is we started this about 2.5 years ago, started doing safety alerts and announcements. And I think we've had our partnership, Amy, if I'm not mistaken, for about 1.5 to 2 years now with NRIX, that we've been able to deliver these kind of alerts and messages. And we started out in North Carolina, and from North Carolina we went north and found a man named Sal, so our superhero up there, but as you heard today. But we have several other states that are signing on, and because of the unique relationship and partnership that we have with NRIX and the information that we're able to provide drivers, real-time information. And not only that, we're changing driver behavior, and that's what it's all about. From an old trooper, I can tell you, over the years, I always said if I could get in the cab of the truck and have someone riding along with that driver to help coach or mentor them, then we can change driver behavior. And we're starting to see that. More and more with the technology and the software that we have and what we're able to do with Safety Plus, the software that we're doing, and the partnership we have with NRIX along with the state DOTs, they're actually able to go back to our dashboard and see that that driver got that response. This is important because if we can continue in this direction, we'll help revolutionize the industry altogether because we're going to change that driver's behavior and reaction to in-cab notifications for trucks. And to us, that's everything. Again, as a trooper, we would love to have been inside that tractor and told that driver ahead, a mile and ahead, you got a sudden slowdown or a congestion. Prepare now, slow down. 80,000 pounds doesn't stop on the dime. These are the kind of things that we're doing that we're going to change the industry and make it a safer and better place for all of us to be on the highway together.
Great. Yes, it's a very interesting technology. It has that feedback system in it, so company supervisor or others can look and see and kind of validate those alerts and what the actual driver behavior was. So let's go ahead and move to the next question. I think this is an interesting one from Michael Washburn. Thanks, Michael, for asking the question. So if a commercial fleet is contracted to receive alerts, do they receive alerts regardless of the state of travel as long as NRIX data is available, or does it also depend on the state engagement subscription or limit on the type of event alert? So I imagine this answer might be a little bit slightly different depending on the contract or the company that is contracted. So let's maybe, Jared, you can start with pre-pass, and then we'll give Mark an opportunity
Yeah,
answer for
absolutely.
driveways.
And this is, again, based on what our first experience with integrating with and building APIs with a state-sourced 511 system, right, which was with Kentucky. And, we were making progress on doing our own specific APIs, right, for several other states. And again, that's where we learned about the data that INRIX provides, right, which is so all-inclusive to multiple sources from the state DOTs as well as their own data and everything else. And so if, for example, in this question specifically about a pre-pass customer, you're going to get those alerts in all of the states. So, even though we may have individual APIs with states as well, that's again why we utilize the INRIX feed, their traffic management feed as well, so that these safety alerts can be provided throughout the country. And again, the very initial alerts that I mentioned at the top of the conversation, when we started our entire safety alerts campaign, that was also based upon us building, fixed geofences as well for parking and these other safety alerts that are throughout the country for any other dangerous situations that the drivers experience out there.
Great, thanks, Jared. How about Mark? Do you want to give a response?
Oh, yes, sir. We're in about 2.8 million trucks to the ELD, so the driver can just download our app and have it running in the background, and it stays on continuously, and they'll receive our notifications, and it is free. Our drivers that subscribe to it will get it automatically, and the ones that download the app will receive it as well, and that's the benefit. Safety alerts for the driver to receive is critical, and we're able to do that and provide that to any GPS compatible device in that ELD for us, so they are receiving that free of charge.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Michael, for the question. Here's one from Matthew. I know that INRIX does a great job of identifying best and worst times to travel related to major holidays. So any thoughts about pushing that data out as part of the alerts process? So Sal, you did this for a major weather event. Have you thought about doing this for holiday travel?
That's a great question. Like I said, I don't think there's anything that's off the table. The last couple of years, one of the things that we've been looking at is seasonal travel patterns. New Jersey is a great state to go skiing in the northwestern part of the state in the winter months. But man, let me tell you, our eastern shore during the summer months, that is a major part of our economy and a major part of our travel demand. From our toll roads that run along the roadways, which are covered for the DriveWise notification system, to our interstates where people are taking longer trips for holiday weekends. It's something we can certainly look at. I can honestly say it's not something that we have a plan for, but we'll take that back and we'll see what we want to do. Good question.
Okay, something to think about. Always more to think about. So thank you, Sal. Thanks, Matthew, for that question. Maybe just let me ask one kind of forward-looking future question here, a bit of a softball maybe, but what do you guys think is the future of these safety alerts in the cab and in vehicle? Any thoughts about looking forward and where this technology goes from here?
This is Jared from Prepass, and we have, we've been engaging a lot. I'm sure most of us have also heard, because work zones, right, are such a critical issue out there, and I think we've all been hearing about the great work that the US DOT is doing with the work zone data exchange, which ultimately that's a giant, multi-million-dollar project that the goal of that is really to create, harmonized work zone data that's going to be available for any and all third-party use. And I saw one of the questions here in the chat box as well was about, getting this to all vehicles, right? Commercial vehicles, and as well as, there's 275 million total vehicles that are out there on the road, right? So again, using the example where we started off with Kentucky, it was fairly, detailed to be able to integrate with one state's format, right? I'm not our developer technical team by any stretch, but when it comes down to the details of integrating these APIs and having the API work on our app that gets out to all of our trucks, and again, there's a lot of conversation about ELDs, which is also again great. We're integrated with all the major ELDs out there, and that's the point, right? Is to figure out the best way to get this into the cab of the vehicle, and really the bottom line there is the work zone data exchange is intended to create sort of, if anybody's ever seen Lord of the Rings, right? Like one data feed to rule them all, if you will, when it comes to the work zones, in that it'll at least be in a format that any and all third-party providers or users can engage with, so that work zones can be easier to get out to the entire populace. And in particular with that, they're also taking it to the next steps here. We've got a great relationship with the folks at Iowa DOT, and they're working closely, with their university out there, Iowa State University, and they've got some key folks on that, on those committees. And the next step really is also to provide work zone alerts that are active in the sense that, I think somebody mentioned earlier on this call, right? You don't want to inundate your truck drivers or any driver with alerts to the point where they lose their effectiveness, or in particular, if it's a work zone and the data is not current, and I'm a trucker and I get my alert that says work zone ahead, but let's say that work zone shut down yesterday, you can quickly start to work into sort of the boy who cried wolf scenario, which we don't want. And so work zone data exchange is working on things where, topics where basically you could have an alert that would say, hey, there's a work zone ahead and there are workers present, right? And within Iowa DOT, there's a lot of scenarios where work zones are literally ad hoc, right? And at all these DOTs, right, where it could be the team that's out there painting new lines on the road, or doing road cleanup, or whatever the case may be, that there's literally going to be a system of, hopefully this beacon-like system where these alerts can be turned on and off as active work zone alerts, which is going to be really, really critical. And again, a lot of those type of alerts, again, I think are going to start to feed into the bigger picture that we're all excited about, with fully connected vehicles and C-V2X and everything down the road, so that we've got more modern and active ways to say, man, there's 10 people there. Even here with with ADOT and just local in Arizona, we've got work zone signs up for all of us just to see. These are people out there. They need to get home to their family tonight the same as everybody else. And so anyways, from our perspective, we certainly think that advancing work zone safety alerts is going to be big going forward for trucking safety and for everybody's safety.
Great, thanks, Jared. Anyone else
I
want
can do
to
a quick one.
pontificate about the future of safety alerts?
I can do a quick one, Craig, from
Okay.
CDOT. And safety alerts, I think, can go into an even bigger system. One of the things that I work with every day is hazardous material and hazardous material routing, and then the state troopers and first responders that kind of put themselves in harm's way when an incident occurs. And I look to a future with potential for, when you pick up a hazardous materials load as a truck driver, you always get the corresponding paperwork that has the emergency response number and everything associated with that specific chemical. I think that can go into a cloud-based system. And coming from the industry, I know that, in every truck that we had either a gyroscope or an accelerometer that can detect when we had hard braking, fast acceleration, like swerving out of the way. All of that would trigger a sensor, and we would have the video of what happened. In a similar way, I think that same trigger mechanism can work just like GMC's OnStar system, where it could identify a truck that's carrying hazardous material when it crashes. It could alert the local 911 by sending the safety paperwork that goes with that chemical. That way, when the first responder is showing up, they know what equipment they think they need is necessary. If you're showing up to a poison inhalation hazard crash, but you don't know that, that is incredibly risky. And then usually you do a scene assessment and have to call out a specialized team. If you know that you're going to a poison inhalation hazard crash from the time you get notified, you can arrive on scene. Those that are arriving first can have everybody stand back and get the appropriate clearance, while those that are responding with the appropriate gear are already on their way. And so I think, that type of enhancement, working with the industry on finding a safe way that is still efficient in the business process to get something like that could be beneficial for all sides. It could get roads open much quicker in those scenarios. It can limit the amount of environmental hazards that are caused in these situations, and can be very beneficial for all parties involved. And so I think, as we move towards kind of having this technology and how it's available in the truck, we can also look at kind of current incidents and making those things better and safer for everybody after an incident occurs as well.
Okay, very interesting. Thanks, Craig. Yeah, it's exciting to think about the possibilities of this technology and what the future will hold. I know Sal's going to enter his time travel machine, and he'll probably tell us.
Man, I am not going to get that let go, are we? It's going to keep going. I love it. But I mean, I think one of the important things, I don't need to drag this on, but these are great conversations. But that's a great piece that you're talking about in terms of the hazardous stuff. I got an ERG, the Emergency Response Guidebook, here next to my desk. We've given them out to all of our emergency responders. What about the fact that nearly, everybody that walks around today, for those of you that don't, I apologize, but how about nearly everybody walks around and you have some kind of a smart device, whether it's provided to you from your job or you have it yourself. You can subscribe to weather alerts. You can turn on or turn off certain kinds of emergency alerts. Why not set a subsystem within your wireless emergency alerts by your state to be able to have first responders get those for an incident automatically through whatever comes out of the truck incident, like a connected vehicle able automated ERG placard distribution. All of a sudden, the crash happens. Here's the placard and how to approach and what type of suppressant or what type of PPE you need to approach the vehicle. I think that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut this conversation off so we can get out of here on time. And I've got a short survey for you guys, or poll questions. But again, thanks to all our presenters. That was a very interesting presentations, and just starting to get into some interesting discussions too. Adam, do you mind pulling up the poll questions here? You don't mind helping us crowdsource future webinar topics, that would be very helpful. So here are the questions. Adam will actually pull them up in the form of something you can interact with. So what topics would you like to see in an upcoming Adventures in Crowdsourcing webinar? You can just type in your answer there if you have a topic in mind that you think would be of interest. The second one, does your program or state or agency wish to share or present during an upcoming webinar? If yes, please enter your email. These will not be published here, except for the first question. If you answer what topics would you like to see in an upcoming webinar? Third one, about how informative or useful were the presentations today. You can go ahead and give a rating on that. It would be great. And then the fourth one, popping up here, is how likely are you to recommend this webinar series to a friend or colleague? So just some input for us would be very helpful, and how we did and what we can do to make future webinars interesting to you guys. So I'll leave that open for a few more seconds because I want to get us out of here on time. Thank you for sticking in here. So, great, thanks for the feedback. Adam, you can go ahead. Can you pull back the slides? I think I got one last wrap-up slide. Okay, so again, this webinar is sponsored by the EDC6 Crowdsourcing for Operations initiative. We have a website, so check that out. All of our resources are on there, fact sheets, sample applications, FAQs, case studies. There's also a link to our Adventures in Crowdsourcing webinar series, which this is the latest one. We have probably 10 or 12 over the last year or two that we have recorded and can be played on demand for free. There's also a link to subscribing to our e-news newsletter. We're not going to spam you, but if you subscribe, we'll put you on our list when we send out newsletters on this initiative about once every other month or so. And thanks, Adam, for putting the link in there to the website. So again, just like to thank all of the participants. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Adam, and the NOCO team for hosting us and doing a great job in spreading the word. And thank you to our esteemed presenters, Craig and Jared from the Colorado team, and Sal and Amy and Mark from the New Jersey team. Very great and interesting presentations. And on behalf of myself and my co-leads, Greg and Ralph, thank you for joining us, and please see us again next month or in a future webinar when we'll talk about other crowdsourcing for advancing operations applications. So thank you all for joining. We'll see you later. Have a great day.